one of the first youth housing demonstration program communities in the nation. We sought that funding. We were awarded it. Actually, I think we're probably on our second or third renewal. We had assumed and had always been told that those Yhdp projects would come into our renewal rank order and would be considered along with every other renewal project that we need to evaluate every year. This year, HUD says no, those projects are going to be held harmless. You will receive that funding, but they are not considered part of your annual renewal demand. You don't have to rank them. They will be held harmless, and you can put them at the bottom of your rank order. That was helpful. It amounted to about $2.9 million, almost $3 million of Yhdp money. But the kind of you give with one hand, take away with another, we essentially had to completely redo those applications, rewrite them. So there was a lot of work involved in that, and we're still doing that because it's about, well, we've consolidated them. There's about 3 of them now, and we'll talk about that when we review the rank order. We're also eligible to receive some bonus funding. So additional money over and above our annual renewal demand. That included a DV bonus. So we are eligible for $1.9 million if we submit a project that will serve exclusively persons who are survivors of domestic violence. We will be submitting 2 projects for the DV bonus. One is going to be a reallocation. Actually, that's not true. And we'll talk about that too when we get to the rank order. We will be submitting one project that is a transitional rapid rehousing joint component project. We'll be using money. We'll be using an existing facility that currently is a confidential DV, transitional housing DV program, and we will be adding $160,000 to it so that it will have a back-end rapid rehousing component. So this program can serve persons who are in the transitional housing program, and at the same time, they also have this rapid rehousing money to help those households at the back end when they are ready to secure their own housing. So it just adds more flexibility to our continuum of care for domestic violence survivors. We're also eligible.
Will we know what agencies those are?
Do I know which ones they are?
Like, yeah, will we know the organizations and the agencies that these are?
Yes. Okay. So right now, what
I'm just asking for accountability purposes, right?
Sure.
Because when we're about this money, that's what I know as a consumer, that we do this work here on this end, and then as a provider, as this board, and then as I'm a consumer, they're like, oh, well, we ain't got that, or we can't do that. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, then I have to throw that. So I'm just asking. My bad.
Okay. No, you're good. So all this is just an overview before we march into the rank order. It's just reminding you. It's a lot of this is what I've already presented before, but it's just a reminder. So when you actually see the rank order, it will kind of make a little bit more sense, I suppose. So we are eligible for something called a COC bonus. We had brought that to you early on when we asked you to affirm our values and priorities. And one of the things that was reaffirmed, but it is a continuing priority for this continuum of care, is that any new projects that we seek through this kind of bonus funding, and actually any new project that we seek, it's going to be a permanent supportive housing project serving individuals who are defined as chronically homeless under HUD's definition, which means long-term homeless, highly vulnerable with significant disabilities. So we are submitting 3 projects for the COC bonus, and those are going to total $2.4 million. And we will go over those when you see the rank order. I also wanted to alert you to these key dates that we talked about. Again, this is just a reminder. You've heard this before. HUD sets these dates within the NOFO. We have to meet those dates. In some cases, if we meet those dates, we even get extra points. And in this day and age, when we are competing with over 400 continuum of care is across the country. We need every point that we can get, because the higher we score nationally, the more likely it is that we will receive this bonus funding, which is really what we want for our community. So HUD says that 30 days prior to the NOFA due date, the NOFO is due to HUD on November 16th. So we are in the end stages, and Peter will tell you, because we're probably talking to him 3 or 4 times a day. We actually have daily meetings now as we're getting closer to this deadline, because in addition to what I'm talking to you about today, we also have a planning document. It's a narrative that we have to complete that describes to HUD, based on the framework that is outlined in the NOFO, what we have accomplished over, in this case, it's going to be since 2019, since that's the last time we've submitted a written application. So we're in the middle of that at the same time as we're reviewing these individual applications and presenting to you. So 30 days prior to the NOFO, we had to make sure that we had all applications submitted to the COC review, which we did. We met that deadline. 15 days prior to the NOFO due date, November 16th, we needed to have final decisions made on the rank order, which is why that October 25th date was so important. So we have your affirmation of our rank order, and we are moving forward with that affirmation. But today I'm going to be presenting it to you for the conversation in today's meeting. We're just kind of re-presenting the rank order. HUD also says that if we submit our consolidated application, which is really comprised of the planning document that I talked to you about, the rank order that we're looking at today, if we submit that 2 days prior to the due date, so if we submit it no later than the 14th, we get extra points. So even though HUD says the due date is the 16th, internally the deadline is the 14th. I can also say that we were really hoping to submit on the 12th, which is a Friday, because the 14th is a Sunday or something. And so we didn't want to do it on a weekend. We wanted to make sure that if we posted, which by the way, we do have to post the consolidated application, the complete consolidated application on the KCRH website. And so we've already talked to KCRHA, and they will have staff standing by on the weekend in case we get pushed into the weekend in order to post this application for public view. And then we'll press the button, and then we'll take a day off. So that's kind of the outline of the money piece. I also wanted to talk to you about something, the values and priorities. So we have written values and priorities. We've brought those before the committee before. We've discussed them. You've affirmed them. But you will see when you look at the rank order how those values and priorities are actually put into action steps. And I just want to take the time. I think it's worth it to go over that with you again. If you can't stand to hear it one more time, just let me know. But we want to remain competitive. So we have been very, very fortunate in this continuum of care relative to many across the country. We have probably 4 times the amount of money coming through this COC program than we would be eligible for under a formula. So by formula, we're probably only eligible for about 15 million. But because this continuum has been so successful over the years, we will be submitting an application for almost $55 million. So we thread a fine line between having projects and an application that not only addresses HUD's priorities, because they are the funder, but we also want to take into account continuum of care priorities. And we develop those with you all. So HUD's priorities and goals, as you would guess, and I can just go over those very quickly, is this idea of quality data. It's HMIS. What's the quality of our data? And then as a result, what is the performance of our continuum of care based on that HMIS data? So HUD has our performance standards, and we are held to those, and we are evaluated against those. So when we review our local applicants for inclusion in our rank order, we are also looking at performance. But we add on another layer, which is the continuum of care's performance expectations and our own priorities and values. Coordinated entry is another HUD requirement. So we do evaluate projects, although we haven't yet created a metric for it. It's difficult to do that, but we will eventually get to the point where participation in coordinated entry will actually be an evaluation metric. The other thing that they look at is how well we manage our resources, and do we reallocate underperforming projects? And the answer is yes. So since 2016, we've reallocated almost 25% of our money into new projects. And when I say we reallocate into new projects, what they've been reallocated into is what HUD will let us reallocate into. So I just want to let you know that the NOFO also tells us what, how, and when. So new projects, the only new projects that they consider would be HMIS, which we're not doing this year. It would be rapid rehousing, and it will be permanent supportive housing. I'm trying to think if I've missed anything.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Eileen, I had my hand up and I didn't think you could see it.
I can't.
When you were talking about reallocating, I just want to say that I think that we should develop as a CLC board a new thing, that we go out and we surveil or we visit sites where this funding is going, and we make sure that we find out what's going on, because there's a lot of organizations, I won't be long, there's a lot of organizations that have been getting refunded and reallocated that don't deserve to be and need to be really looked at. That's all I want to say.
No, I think that, thank you. So at a point in time, which was a number of years ago, we did actually go out and do site visits. And when we did our first major reallocation, it really was based on some of that, just so you know. But yes, so I saw Peter taking notes. And the other thing that is a HUD priority that you will hear is also a local priority is this whole idea about housing first, having very, very low barrier housing, actually no to low barrier housing. So you will hear us talk about that as well. In terms of the continuum of care, some of the things that have emerged over the years arising from our work with community groups is this idea of geographic and population diversity. So we are a Seattle and King County continuum of care. So for many years, the majority of projects were located in the city of Seattle. We didn't have that many in King County. So we do pay attention to projects out in the county, and we'll work with projects that are struggling, that are currently funded, that are out in the county when we don't have another county project to take its place. So that is a priority that has been developed, again, as I said, over the last number of years. So that is one of our local priorities. We also take into account what it means if we don't fund a project, and as a result, we actually lose housing units. So we value housing units. We don't want to lose any units. So we have been faced with that. And it has taken considerable effort to do workarounds or to do technical assistance, to do whatever it takes if we have underperforming projects, that if we did reallocate them, we would lose that money. We have done it, so we have done it. But it is significant if it does result in the loss of housing units. We also value rapid exits from homelessness into housing. So it is a measure that we look at. And we also look at long-term stability in permanent housing as a value and a priority. And over the last few years, we have been taking a look at equity. Again, it was not something that we could easily quantify into a measure, but we took a stab at it. And over the last couple of years, we have asked some narrative questions, and I will be getting into that, that helps us evaluate programs' approach to assuring that there is equity in the people that are in their program, and there is equity in people exiting the program. So that being said, we also have certain COC priorities. We do value maintaining as much money in our continuum as we possibly can, which means sometimes we're faced with difficult decisions because, as I said, it's a balance between what HUD wants and what maybe our continuum of care might want. We have to remember that this is a federal fund source. We're bringing those dollars in, so we're really paying attention to that funder. We want to promote the goal of reducing racial disparities, so that's in writing. Again, that's something that you have affirmed. We want to center leadership with people of lived experience in planning, programming, and evaluation of COC grants. Again, you guys have seen that. You have affirmed that. The other thing is we value projects that actively participate in the continuum of care. So we pay attention to projects and agencies and their participation in the activities like we're conducting today. Another value that's very important to us is that we don't use continuum of care funding to replace the kinds of activities and funding that should come from mainstream resources. So one of the factors that we look at is how assertive agencies are in helping their residents secure SSI, SSDI, food stamps, anything else that is available to them to help increase their independence, their income, and assure their housing stability. So that is something that we value and will assess programs on. The other thing that we look at, and this is just one, and the last one I'll talk about, is that we do really take a look at projects and their fidelity measures, particularly spending and occupancy. So are they using the resources that we provide them through this fund source? And then are they utilizing the resources that we provide them through this fund source? And we have had projects that have lost funding, quote, been reallocated because they have not done that. They haven't been spending their money. They hadn't been keeping their projects full. They had not been participating in the continuum of care. We were spending our continuum of care money on projects and services that should have been picked up by mainstream resources. So the 25% of funding that I've talked about that we've reallocated in the past has been really directed at these very measures that we're talking about. So that leads me to asking if we could show the COC program final priority order. Maybe we could pull that up on the screen so everyone can see it.
Okay, pulling it up now.
Yeah. Yes. So what you will see when you look at this rank order, remember we said that we did not have to place projects into at risk because of tiering. So all of our projects that you're going to see here are in tier 1. And if we don't totally bomb out, which we won't, these projects are mostly assured of being funded. When you look at this, you will see the projects rank from 1 to 55. You will see the sponsor, which is really the agency that's being funded. You will see the project name, the target population to be served by that project, the area in which the project is located, or its catchment area, which is either going to be the city of Seattle, balance of county, which is anything outside the city of Seattle, or regional, which serves both city or county. You will see in the next column their score. The highest scoring project received 90 points out of a possible 96 points, I believe. And we talked about this on the 25th. Our scoring schema includes points for projects that meet some of HUD's most stringent hearth measures. We have those in there because we are always striving toward those points. We want to make sure that they're in front of us at all times, but they're hard to achieve. So the difference between 96 and 90 mainly had to do with those points that are in there that are the hearth performance standards, the key hearth performance standards. The next column is type, whether it is a permanent supportive housing project, a joint component project, which is one I just talked about earlier, which is a transitional housing joined with rapid rehousing, a safe haven, which is a unique program component. It actually isn't even funded anymore. I think we talked about this last week. This continuum of care is keeping its safe havens. They act like crisis housing for some of the most vulnerable individuals on the street. It was really originally designed to take individuals from the street who needed a length of time in order to acclimate to a housing situation. They either had such high acuity or were so fragile that they needed to be housed in a very, it was a specifically designed facility and had very robust services associated with it. And the ultimate goal was for them to move into the next step of housing, getting them off the street. We're keeping those. They still serve a purpose in our continuum. Even though we have permanent supportive housing, we don't have enough of it. And folks can move from a safe haven directly into a permanent supportive housing project. So it does add a lot of flexibility to our continuum. The next program component that you'll see is transitional housing. Transitional housing is time-limited housing. It's a maximum of 24 months. It is a program model that HUD still funds. And you will see most of our transitional housing is going to be directed toward youth and young adults as a population type. You'll also see it associated with domestic violence programs, and there are a few left for some of our single adult programs that serve primarily veterans, although it's just a model that works for the population that you'll see, a single adult population that's transitional housing. We can only fund services, supportive services. We can fund operating, and we can fund program administration. If you are a rapid rehousing project, we will fund the short and medium term rent assistance. So you will see those, and we can fund leasing, by the way. We can fund project-based leasing, and we have a few programs where we are able to master lease some units out in the community that are then occupied by individuals who are chronically homeless, long-term, highly vulnerable individuals who aren't going to be able to hold a lease in their own name, generally. As we go down the rank order, I want to draw your attention, and somebody's really good with their marker, to project that's ranked number 29, Anita Vista. And you'll see in some blue letters that says reallocated into a COC bonus project. This is what I was talking to you about. This project was a transitional housing program. It received $57,319 through the COC program. This project is a direct grant. I didn't mention that to you. We have three types of projects that are noted in this rank order. We have City of Seattle projects, where City of Seattle is the recipient on behalf of the individual projects listed here. King County is a direct recipient now for the majority of the projects, and we have about 9 or 10 agencies that contract directly with HUD that are called direct grantees. In other words, they don't come through the city or the county. The only time we really encounter them is during this annual renewal process when they seek their renewal funding. YWCA Anita Vista is a project that has been funded with Continuum of Care program funding probably for maybe for 20 years. They are they perform extremely well. They are valued within the domestic violence community. But the domestic violence community is beginning to realize that rapid rehousing is a valuable tool to them and for the households that they serve. So Anita Vista is asking to give up its money. It's $57,000 as a transitional housing project. We are submitting it as a new project under the COC, under the DV bonus, and adding some additional money. So we added money to beef up their case management staff, and we added money for the rent assistance component. So $160,000 of their new grant will be for rent assistance. And we believe this will make this project much more effective in the domestic violence continuum of care.
Hey, Eileen, I know that you are screen sharing right now. I just wanted to note that Karen's had her hand up for a while, if you want to let her jump in at any time.
Say that again?
Oh, I know that you're screen sharing, so you can't see Zoom. I wanted to let you know that Karen has had her hand up to speak.
Oh, I can't. Oh, Karen,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. I couldn't see that. Karen, I'm ready.
That might have been from earlier. Karen, is your hand still up from before?
Which I can't see any of.
Well, what I could do is just move to the second page of the rank order, and then I'm almost ready to be quiet.
Did you guys call me?
Yeah, your hand is still up. I just wanted to make sure that's from before, whether you had another question.
No, I have questions. I didn't know when I could go.
You can go now.
We could go now.
Okay. Okay, first, I wanted to know, what did you mean when you said equity going in and moving out of housing? What do you mean?
Oh.
Can you define to me what you meant by equity?
Yeah. So we asked a narrative question, and our narrative question was really limited to having them take a look at all of the individuals in their program, what those individuals look like, and what did the individuals look like that exited? Was there a relationship between who was in your program and who was in your program that actually obtained housing? And then we wanted to know, how you assured that folks that were ready to exit, so that's what we meant. That's what we were looking at. We wanted to see a relationship between the individuals in the program and then the individuals who exit the program, and was there equity?
And if they were able to obtain permanent housing.
Correct.
Because that is the goal. The goal would be.
That's the goal. Yes, it was exit.
And so
right.
when you say equity, it's not something that we could use loosely. It's something that we have to do.
That's
it
right.
It should be a law, and there should be consequences for those who do not. So that's what I wanted to touch on that. And then
Thank you.
when you said participating in the continuum of care, who is and how are they participating? Because I don't think I see, no, it wasn't a question. I don't think I see anybody. I'm sorry. I don't think I see anybody. I'm trying to go through this quickly because I wrote these down.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see any agencies here from YMCA, Catholic Community Services, New Beginnings, blah, 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 right? I don't see them. So if they're not participating, when you say participating, are you saying showing up at meetings, doing public comment, or what?
So what that means a lot of different things. We have a lot going on in this continuum of care. So there are other committees and boards associated with KCRHA. And so I know some of the agencies and programs are involved at different levels of KCRHA. We have funder groups. We have peer groups. Domestic violence has its own groups. So we
can I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just
No.
gotta be clear. I want to be clear. the Lived Experience Coalition and the Village of Hope and the People's Institute and several other organizations that I can't name, there's so many right now, have been organizing to have people participate and be in seats, and people with lived experience be right there to make decisions on how the community is affected by the policies and the laws and the funding and so on and so forth. So when you say participating, you could mean one thing. When I say participating, I mean actively involving yourself in the organizations that that voted Mark in and that uphold the theory of change and want to be a part of that. They need to participate with the governing board, the implementation board, the COC board. That to me is key and very important.
Okay.
Skipping that, when you said fidelity measures, utilizing the resources, I want to know who's keeping tabs on them, on the agencies that have been funded. You know, I'm listening, honey.
No. Oh, no.
I was told to do my homework, so this is what I'm doing.
You did. So as we do, so we, it's one of the funding it's one of the, it's part of our scoring schema. So City of Seattle knows which of its projects is not spending, not submitting invoices, not submitting reports on time. King County knows which projects are doing that. We need
to know. We need to know.
We work directly with HUD as well on the programs that report to HUD. So we are monitoring that. We do.
Well, I want to say for myself, I hope I'm speaking for the group. If not, let me know. We want to be in the know about that, because that is very important on how we allocate funds.
Yes.
And the last thing I'll say, and give someone else a chance, is transitional as opposed to permanent. We're talking about, I heard you mention transitional housing, and I see that a lot of these agencies, that's what they do. They do shelters and then transitional housing. And I said, as opposed to permanent, because permanent housing is, I think, where we ought to put some money. And I will stop there. And I thank you for your presentation.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. So Nuishtamai, do you have a question?
Hi, I don't think it's a question, it's more of a concern. So I heard you talking earlier about how, there's certain metrics you guys have to hit, and you gotta, there's pressure from HUD on that. What is concerning for me is, like, when it comes to these programs coming out to different marginalized communities, it might take longer to service out, these different projects. And I feel like, having a goal set on everybody else, for us in the Indigenous community, it's really hard to find our members right now. One, our day center is closed down because it's doing construction. The other thing is just the outreach of it, of not being able to find, our Native community out in the community. They're all staying in different areas trying to survive right now. And I feel like what's concerning is having the same metrics for everybody. Some communities might miss that mark, in that. So I just wanted to raise that, because I feel like I'm feeling that within my own programs as well with Chief Seattle Club.
I'm glad you raised that. Thank you for bringing that up, because I have given this presentation a few times, so occasionally I'll forget to say something. So I do want to say that when we evaluated, I said we evaluated performance, we evaluated data coming out of HMIS. We evaluated data, everybody was reviewed against the same data set, which was April 1, 2020 through March 31st, 2021. So we did take into account impacts of COVID, impacts on programs resulting from COVID. We also, when we evaluate projects, we evaluate like to like. So we evaluate PSH to PSH, TH to TH. We also build into the scoring schema an element recognizing the difficulties inherent in some of the target populations that are being served by these programs. So we give an advantage to youth and young adult programs, an advantage to DV programs. I'm trying to think right off the bat, but that's a start. When we present the scoring schema, it is presented to, and we have other things in there where if you're not going to score well on one factor, you might score well on another factor. It has to be recognized that with the use of coordinated entry, many of the programs, they take who is referred and who is eligible and meets the requirements of their program. So sometimes they don't
But
even have
that's not always true. That's what you guys are convinced about, that's how they do it. But I'm telling you, as a consumer, that's not how the game goes. The game goes, oh, because I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, I'm going to let your client or your person jump the gun and help them over the 10 other people that are waiting, or the 10 other people that can't even make it into their offices because they smell like urine or because they're not up to their par to make it in. You understand what I'm saying? And that's the accountability part that I was talking about. They're bullshitting their way through this just to get the money. And I can say that because I'm a consumer of some of these services and they're bullshitting me. And I'm also working at DSC and they bullshit everybody. So when they convince you guys in these higher paces, HUD and other stuff that they're doing this work, the reality is down here on the ground in the front lines, it's all bullshit. Because me and my clients, we're still homeless. We still need services.
Yeah.
Thank you. Eileen, I'm gonna step in here because I want to make sure that we stay on track and stay on agenda topics. It is clear that we have a lot of work to do that is in front of us. As this meeting goes along and we get past this initial application, which we did not put together, but has been done and is ready for submittal, the work that will go into preparing the next one will be right at the top of our list. And hopefully we can start assigning some of these very good questionable areas to groups that can actually start presenting the theorem of change and how we wish as a community to move forward. So I've taken notes, and I hope I didn't figure out who on staff was taking notes, but we can always go back through the transcripts. But I want to make sure that we're collecting this information because it'll be vital to how we see our work as a committee.
Yep.
But if you could you continue with the rest of the presentation?
Yes. So let's go to the
overall questions.
Perfect. Let's go to the second page.
Well, I just want to quickly say too, Marvin, that, I think sometimes we waste a lot of time doing presentation. It takes up almost the whole meeting, and people don't get a chance to voice their feelings and their passion and their opinions because we're so busy listening and waiting. And then we're all jumping to ask questions. I feel like we should have maybe a little less presenting and more relating and talking amongst ourselves about how we all want to move forward. Because I think agenda and timelines and stuff, it gets away from the true relating and the true relationships that we're trying to build to affect the change that we want to see here.
I hear you clearly, and I apologize. We created a special meeting that was on October 25th that was wide open for just those type of discussions. This application I will present once again has been made. Decisions on it, who's in it, where dollars are going have been made. I just thought that folks would want to know what it looks like, because it probably will not look like this next year, given our ability for input, our ability to develop maybe possibly different measures in how we work with HUD requirements and programs that are seeking funding. So Once again, the last part of this meeting is hopefully we'll be looking at a rollout, how we try to get that work done as a committee moving forward into the new year.
Thank you.
Eileen?
Thank you. So I think I also neglected to say that when we first came to you, we did say that this was a very unusual year, that we were between the All Home Board and the KCRHA Board. We missed the 2019. We did not have a 2020 round. So this has been an unusual year. The NOFA was late, so it's been just an unusual year. So let's go to the second page of this rank order. There's a page. There's a second page to this that then allows you to see the you up viewing. I don't know if Naomi. Oh, she's trying. There she goes. There we go.
There it is. Sorry about
There we
that.
go. So as I said, this is the rank order. You will see on this rank order that the last ranked project of our existing renewal grants was a youth serving program. You will see that at the bottom, most of the projects are going to be youth and young adult projects. They're relatively small, but the youth and young adult population is a difficult one to serve. It sort of bears out the fact that we value a diversity of population types. So I just want to draw that to your attention. The next three projects, just below the first blue line, are what we call COC Infrastructure Grants. This is funding for coordinated entry. It's funding for the DV coordinated entry and HMIS. Want to show those to you. The next set of projects are the Yhdp projects. These are ones that we did not have to rate or rank, but they are in the priority order. The next three projects are the COC bonus projects. These are new projects. These are permanent supportive housing projects serving chronically homeless. We probably have a total of, I meant to count this from the last time, close to 275 new housing units represented in this group of projects. We have one project that is the highest ranking in the list of three, which is Burien PSH. Again, this is one that's out in the county. We value this project because it's in the county. It has 95 units, again, for permanent, persons who are chronically homeless and extremely vulnerable. All of these projects have connections to healthcare, either through a primary care on site or through dedicated behavioral health connections, again, provided on site. The third project, the PhD Madison and Boylston project, you will see over in the cost column is $880,000. That is the amount coming from the COC bonus. We took the $57,000 that we had reallocated away from the Anita Vista project and added it to the Madison Boylston project. This project is noteworthy. Again, it's 112 units located on First Hill. Its target population is, again, chronically homeless single adults with disabilities, though, that are over the age of 55. So it is going to have very specialized senior care connections to, just want to say it, state aging and disability for on-site nursing care, chore services, anything that's needed to help medically fragile, particularly elderly, homeless individuals. So that one is a noteworthy project. The next are the two projects that we're submitting for the DV bonus. You'll see Anita Vista there. We're requesting $320,000 for this project. And the project below that is an expansion of an existing rapid rehousing project. It currently has 4 partners, LifeWire, New Beginnings, Broadview, and YWCA in South County. This is rapid rehousing. This is an expansion of an existing project. They are actually doing quite well. They are housing people. It is a successful project model for this population. We did not have time so what we are thinking with this project, should we be fortunate enough to be funded, once we get this award, we will conduct a request for proposal process or some kind of process to make this funding available to other organizations in the community. We will expand the number of partners that will benefit from this program. Below that is the COC Planning Grant. Again, this is money we don't compete for. It's money that is provided to us outside of our annual renewal demand. However, it is the funding that funds KCRHA. In fact, it funds me. I am paid in large part out of this grant to help put this application together and do the work that it takes. That being said, when you look at the entire application, we will be submitting for $54,374,544 this year, and hope to submit that application to HUD on or before the 16th of November. We're not expecting to have awards until probably early 2022. So we're not expecting HUD to announce any awards as it has in the last couple of years. They've managed to make the announcements on or around Christmas. We don't think that they'll be announcing until 2022. And so this is the priority rank order, again, that was affirmed by this committee on 10/25. And I am totally open to any questions that anyone has based on what you see in front of you.
Thanks,
Christina?
Eileen.
Yeah. And
I have 2 questions. Why are veterans housing not identified as such? And second, are any of the domestic violence housing program for men or those who identify as that gender?
To my knowledge, and I have to say, I don't want to speak that knowledgeably, it's open to everybody. So they come through coordinated entry. If it's a male or transgender, if they are in danger and fleeing domestic violence, I think most of these programs, they used to be congregate living, so that made it a little more difficult. Now with the onset of these joint component and the availability of rapid rehousing, which is tenant-based rental programs, they take everybody. So in terms of veterans, we don't have any specific veterans dedicated projects. We do have projects that have set-asides for veterans in their permanent supportive housing projects. DESC in particular is one that comes to mind.
Isn't William Booth just for veterans?
No, it's not exclusively for veterans, no, but they serve a high number of veterans. They're equipped to serve veterans. So remember when I was talking about transitional housing programs, they're primarily DV or youth and young adults. The exception there is William Booth. It's transitional housing, single adult, but they serve a high number of veterans and have specific veterans program and services. So, so that was a good question, but we don't have any specifically identified, this is a veterans program.
Just to clarify, the veterans programs that are funded through the VA don't come through the continuum of care. So there is a separate funding stream that comes for those veteran programs, for the special service, supportive services for veteran families and BASH. Those come through VA streams and not the continuum.
Although I will say, we take advantage of those veterans resources, especially VASH vouchers, to underwrite some of the operating costs in our buildings, just FYI. My dog wants to come and join the conversation. No.
Does he have a doghouse, Eileen?
He's got it. I don't know why, but it's when I start talking. It's like talking like this. She just wants to be. No, I don't anymore. Not with this dog. It's just since I've been working at home and been on these calls so much, these video calls, that behavior has shown itself.
I have a cat like the same thing, so.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that presentation. That's a lot of work you put in there. Appreciate what you've done.
Thank you.
Appreciate the comments from my community members too.
Thank you. Thank you. You've got a lot of work ahead of you in 2022. And I know Peter is taking note of all of your comments. I appreciate your patience.
Do others have questions?
Okay.
Does anybody else have a question?
Ben's got his hand up.
Okay, sorry.
Ben, do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to get all this set up. Yeah, I just wanted to check in. We don't need to have a super long conversation about it, but my understanding was that there were bonus points available for the point in time count. And I don't know that we've made a final decision on that. I'm just curious how that was, if that was considered, or how we should interpret that.
Yeah. Peter, can you answer that?
Yeah, that was considered in the mix of decisions, and part of the challenge with the point in time count is just having a methodology that people support and actually have confidence in, and it was not at all clear. This is not a mandatory year for a count. They added bonus points to try to incentivize folks to do a count. But not having the lead time for preparation, not having the sort of supported methodology, we thought this year we're going to do planning for to take the advantage of this body, the other bodies, to just really plan out a methodology that we can all support, and do the street count next year. So we have to do it. We have to do the sheltered count. It is part of what's necessary, every year from every continuum, but not the street count this year.
And Peter, I was going to say, anecdotally, I don't think there's very many continuum of cares. I could be wrong, but anecdotally, I think that most people are going to take a pass. You might know more than I, but just from what I hear.
It makes sense.
It's also, we're not out of the Delta variant. It's not as if the pandemic is behind us either.
Yeah. Christy? Oh,
I thought you said that we were competing with 400 other continuum of cares around the country.
We are,
for this money. How big is this pot of money that we're
I had that figure at my last presentation, but I want to say it's something like 2 billion, 1.8, 2 billion. Do you think, right, Peter? I'm almost certain that is. Yeah.
My notes have 1.8, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but it is. Yeah.
So, and they're structured to the same criteria, or is their criteria different based on their population, their geographic location, other demographic factors? Blah blah blah. No.
So our score is based on how we respond to what we call the Exhibit 1, which is the planning document, and everybody responds to those questions. So they are evaluated. Although we've been talking, I would love to know who are the ones that read through all of those. I've never seen their scoring schema. I've never seen, but I can tell when you say we're all evaluated we're all put in the pot and evaluated. We have to respond to the same questions.
We're evaluated similarly to, say, Portland, which is about our same size demographically. We're located on the West
Yes.
Coast. How about a similar situation as opposed to, say, Macon, Georgia, which is totally a different area, different population, different geographic, different weather. So
Yeah, I don't, and Peter, you may know more because but I don't know exactly how HUD distributes the applications, how they're reviewed, who reviews them. I just know that they, just like we do, there is a scoring schema. Each of the responses has a point assigned to it. So how they decide that Seattle's going to get one, although we know, how Seattle's going to get 1 point and Macon, Georgia might get 3. We have complained. Oh, I don't know if I want to waste your time, but we
I
are.
want
know
to add on to it because it's not a waste of time.
I was
People need
next,
to understand the
you guys just
matrices.
glossing over me.
I'm sorry. I don't want to lose you. I want you to stay.
Well, you're gonna make me
this.
lose my thought because I was waiting, trying to go when Peter went.
Okay,
And then
I
you
can
started
hold
raising
my
your
thought.
hand
You
after
can
that.
go.
So let me just say this. I don't want to miss the fact that Shanae made a very, very valid point. And people don't want to talk about passion. People don't want to talk about the anger that's in the community, that the community feels, and that we have every right to feel about the white supremacy that's embedded in systems and the structural of the system. I'm here to disrupt that racism and that system. Okay. So I don't have a lot of respect for that because they don't have no respect for me or my life. Okay. People are going through hell. People are out here living through hell. And you know what makes me almost the maddest is when somebody says, oh, 50 people were put in tiny houses. That just pisses me off because to me, a tiny house ain't nothing but a dog house for a Great Dane. It's uninhabitable for humans. Okay. So I want to stop talking about transition and I want to stop talking about tiny houses and I want to start talking about permanent supportive housing. And I want to start talking about jobs for people that are valuable. And I want to start talking about the real stuff, the action, the ombudsman chomping his teeth down on the throats of the white supremacists that are still sitting in positions of power in King County. The people that have been doing this in an effed up way for years. I'm saying time out. I'm time out supporting these agencies that ain't doing nothing for the people. I'm for the people and I will die for the people. Okay. So I just don't want people to gloss over my anger, my raised voice, my tears, or my passion, because I have every right to feel how I feel. Because you can give me one small studio apartment and still not give me a job where I can pay my rent. And I feel unhoused. I feel 2 seconds away from being homeless again. And that's my personal. So when people get loud, or when people cry, or when people get mad, they have a reason for it. And I don't want people trying to sweep it under the rug and act like it's not valid and it doesn't need to be in this meeting because it does. That is why we are here. Okay? And I think that that's more important. People's heart and people's health and people's well-being is more important than all those words and those long-winded speeches about change that they're really not up to doing. They're tokenizing us and using us to sit at these tables, and they steal our wealth and they steal what we say and try to make it their own. And I got mad yesterday when all those people ran for those positions, the mayor, the county executive, blah, 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 all that voting that I did, and not a lot of my people were not picked. So I'm angry about that today. I'm mad about that because it ran out there like they care about me. And I know they don't. They've proven that they don't. They don't care about me. They don't care about the people under the bridge or in the tent or in the rain. That's why I'm here. That's why I am who I am, y'all. And if you don't have to like me, but you will hear me.
And you've been heard. Thank you. So I held my response for Ben is when we first got together as Continuum of Care back in January, one of the first points to last Continuum of Care was for me to learn as much as I could about Continuum of Care boards. In doing so, I actually just stuck around the West Coast. And I tried to review not only the work of the continuum of care here in Seattle, but in Portland, but in Sacramento, also in San Diego. And one of the things that I found very interesting in how HUD approaches different geographics and demographics is what it was the key number of the median annual income. It affected the point system in which continuum of cares could receive in certain areas. So these are all pieces to the puzzle of how do we affect, how are we going to put together this next round of notice of funding opportunities that really allows us to address this area's unique homelessness problem. So I don't know if that helped that conversation any, but there it is. Do others have questions for Eileen?
Just that's an interesting stat, Marvin, especially as Seattle becomes one of the more affluent cities in the United States. Does that help us or hinder us?
It hurts us.
Yeah, okay.
It hurts us a great deal.
That question.
But these are learning pieces that I think as we move forward, folks will learn and need to be able to figure out how to address.
We still have such a great divide financially and fiscally here too. Thanks for presenting that today for us. Wow. Tamara's got her hand up.
Oh,
Hi, I just wanted to show my support for Karen. That was an incredibly powerful statement that I wholeheartedly support and embrace. And I totally agree with everything that she said about white supremacy and racism and how that has heretofore defined the homeless response system. And I'm wondering, who the hell at HUD do we talk to about changing some of these rigid requirements and population demographic analysis? Like, who the hell do we talk to about that? Because it is producing inequitable outcomes and tension. Seattle's always pretended to be this progressive liberal city, but there's also, let's be honest, a lot of NIMBYs here in our midst. And I want to be able to pull on our federal government to support local communities who are bold enough and brave enough to say, hey, this is not right. Talk to us, talk to the people on the ground living it, and talk to the providers who are supporting the folks who are on the ground or who are living with the trauma of homelessness and experiencing systemic racism on a daily basis. Ableism, like all the other isms that the ism family, racism, homophobia, like sexism, classism. Where are we in like incorporating some of that academic knowledge that we have into practical daily practices, I guess, of helping our community, uplifting our community? That's based on community-driven solutions, community-driven objectives and priorities, and not necessarily at the whim of people in power who have historically been white men, white folks. And that's not to speak ill of anybody, but it's just to like level out the playing field. Where are we in that regard? Can we have HUD come and pay us a visit? Can we go to their doorways and ask questions? Oh man. Anyways, I'll stop now. Thank you.
I want to jump on the Tamara bandwagon because absolutely, we're going to change this paradigm. This continuum of care board, this advisory board, this King County Regional Homelessness Authority, nothing has ever been put together like this. HUD's going to pay attention to us. We're being watched as is right now. I know that's a truism. And everything that's come up, especially the passion, especially the feelings that we have regarding how we want to see the system change to reflect reality, exactly what you're talking about. They're going to be watching us, and pretty soon we don't have to knock on their door, Tamara. They're gonna come knock on our door. So yeah, that's what I see happening in my vision. So yeah, and thank you, Karen. You do have a lot of passion. So we do. I think this board does. So
Do we have other hands up? For one, from my phone, I can't see when there are hands up, so I could take all the help in the world on that one.
I don't see any other hands up, Marvin.
No more
Okay.
hands, Marvin.
Do we, Eileen, is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
No, other than thank you. Somebody wanted to know next steps. I don't know if you meant next steps for this NOFO. So
Yes.
what happens is this rank order will be posted to the KCRHA website. It already was posted. And that means that part is done. So now what happens is we are working exclusively on the planning document, the Exhibit 1 document, which is narratives, which is attachments, and also is actually the priority order. We have to enter the priority order by hand into an electronic application. And so we will actually probably be doing that on Sunday. And then we really hope that we can have everything done by the 12th. I don't know if that's going to happen because it's scary to think that that's only 9 days away. But those are the next steps.
I mean, you got this. We got this.
So there really is a process where you literally press the send button. And once we press that send button, it's out of our hands. And we won't hear anything from HUD until they issue a press release. Generally, we are expecting that in the first quarter of 2022. We could be lucky. I just think they're as understaffed as we and overworked as everybody else. So I don't think, and they put together, anyway, I don't expect anything until the first quarter.
I think it's also fair to just recognize that this NOFO was pretty late too. So, thinking about, that timeline, it's easy to imagine it being pushed out, when they make the awards and the announcements.
Yep. I totally think that's going to happen. What Kate and I always say, though, these will be my parting words, is this is a year-round process. This is not just a process that happens when the NOFO is released. The NOFO is a result of all the work that happened before it. So all of your comments and the input that you provided over the few meetings that I have attended will be valuable to what Peter and his team will do in 2022. And it will start in 2022 so that we can be ready for the NOFA, which if it comes out on its normal schedule should come out in July, August. So that's it. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
For the board, the next step for us is to take a vote for acceptance. So I'll open the floor and entertain a motion to accept it this time.
I make a motion that we go ahead and vote on the NOFO before us as a board. Is that eloquent enough?
Well, sure. Is there a second?
I second the motion to vote.
Thank you. So for this purposes, Naomi, could you just go through the roll?
Will do, Marvin. If you would like to vote yes, if you could just say aye, and if you would like to vote no, if you could just say nay. So I will start reading the names now. Benjamin.
Aye or yay.
Brianna. Dan.
Yes.
Jenna.
Aye.
Jesse. Karen,
Yes. What did you say?
would you like to vote yes on the NOFO application?
How's everybody voted so far? I'm hearing you, but I'm kind of upset. Everybody said yes?
Yes.
So far.
Okay, well then, yes. I'll go with you guys. I trust you guys, and I hope we're doing a good thing. Thank you.
No, we're 20, please.
Kelly, Christy,
Aye.
Christina. Got you. Christina says aye. Lise. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Lise. Can you say that again?
Aye.
Thank you. Linda. Marisol. Marvin.
Aye, yes.
Nawishmai.
Yes.
Noreen. Robin.
Yes.
Shanae.
Yes.
Sherry.
Yes.
An outreach.
Tamara.
Aye.
All members have voted yes to move forward with the NOFO.
Thank you.
Thanks, Naomi. I don't know if you saw it, but Brianna voted aye in the chat.
Yes, I have recorded Brianna's response. Thank you.
Great. So,
We all
thanks
agreed on
everyone.
something.
I say that it passed.
We all
So
agreed on something. How about that? Woo!
hopefully we
Thank
don't
you.
miss any internal deadlines and get that bad boy off by the 12th.
Thank you.
I have
Okay,
one
I'm gonna leave
announcement.
now. That's where I'm going.
I have one
Thank you.
announcement in case anybody's interested. I forgot to mention this earlier. Tonight at 6:30, there's the Crisis System Redesign Community Forum for any lived experience people. If you're interested, I can put the Zoom information and the password in the chat. So that's the
Thanks,
Crisis
Christy.
System
Please
Redesign
do.
Project.
And if folks have any other questions about what that crisis response activity is like, feel free to
Ask
check
Peter.
in or send an email. Yeah.
Ask Peter.
So, good work. Now, we've taken care of our part of roughly 1/3 of the overall budget for the King County Regional Housing Authority's dollars for addressing homelessness in the upcoming year. I hoped we'd have a little more time, but I think folks should see or hear what the rest of the budget actually looks like, what it's may be addressed to, what it's for, what some of the plans are that are asking for dollars for addressing. Because while we have the responsibility for the HUD funding, we're asked as a committee to be an advisory source, to be able to speak to how the authority uses funding and for what programs, how is it meeting, how's it all working in the upcoming year, along with being able to meet with both the implementation board and the governing boards. We will need to be able to advise or share our experience with other work groups that are, working to develop the policies or the process of, distribution of authority funds. So I'm going to turn this over to Peter, and I know we're leaving him short on time. However, I still think that a overview is a good place for us to start.
Absolutely. Thanks, Marvin. Thanks, folks. So I want to introduce two of my colleagues here who are on us with the panel. Meg Barkley is the Chief Administrative Officer for the RHA. That's what we decided to call ourselves, by the way, the RHA instead of the authority or the regional authority. We're trying to because the authority sounds a little bit too, authoritative, or, it sounds a little Orwellian. So we're trying to, we thought RHA.
You're the new game in town.
We do not want to show up. So Meg is our Chief Administrative Officer, CAO, and she has the budget responsibility. She presented this information to our implementation board, and I wanted everybody to see that. The other colleague that I wanted to introduce is Erin Bryant Thomas, who is our Director of Equity and Justice, and she's joining us as well. So and then so Meg has this presentation that we can go through. Naomi, if you could post that up, and
I can share my screen and walk through it if that's easier. I'm ready to do that.
You should be able to share.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready, just let me know.
Good. Well, I can't help you share the screen. You're now.
Oh yeah, just let me know when you're. So
yeah,
I'll get started. So I just cut Peter's intro off. I didn't want to.
No, you're good. You're good. We're now in galloping time. We gotta move.
Okay. Okay, cool. In just a second. And there we go. So I'll try and keep this I'll try and run through these quickly so there's some time for Q&A since we are later in the agenda. But this is the presentation of our proposed budget for 2022, largely exclusive of the COC funding that you just discussed. So this is other funding. It's really important. I think the big key thing about this year's budget that's important to understand is that we are taking over existing contracts from the city and the county and maintaining level funding. So there wasn't much of a process to the decisions about where this money is going this year, because we are taking on previous contractual obligations of the city and the county. The idea is that there will be an assessment in 2022 of the overall system, and then we would make recommendations in 2022 to reprocure the whole system as a result of the findings of that assessment. So and so there will be a more extensive decision-making process for next year's budget as a result of that than there was for this year's budget. This year's budget was a lot more of like a fact-finding mission of understanding what funding is going to be available and what it's being made available for. But with that said, we have identified additional needs beyond the funding that's currently being administered by the city and the county. And I'll talk a little bit about those asks. And we've been working largely with the city of Seattle to identify sources for those needs. So those things include the downtown recovery plan, a high acuity response. We're also spending a lot of our time and our current resources on regional infrastructure. There is some funding that's anticipated, and we are working on developing a program to serve people better who live in their vehicles. And there's a catalytic portfolio that I believe there have been presentations of that around over the last several months. So this is the overall presentation of an overview of the overall budget.
Oh, Chrissy, I gotta go.
Where the top part is those continued programs I was talking about. So these two rows up here, these are those continued funding for continued programs. the next sort of section of the budget is about the proposed new programs, but that does include some incremental changes that were in the mayor's proposed budget for the city of Seattle, not necessarily initiated by the authority. And also ARPA and Clifford carry forward. Those are coronavirus response funding that is also sort of already has a use attached to it. So the two new proposals by the authority are the establishment of a peer navigation network and a proposed high acuity non-congregate enhanced shelter for with 150 beds, which I'll talk a little bit more about now. And then the authority's operating costs as well. So when we were talking, as I was saying, that continued workload amounts to about $119.2 million over 200 contracts. The new requests are for the downtown recovery plan, which is really centered around establishment of a peer navigation workforce and establishing 150 beds of non-congregate shelter for our high acuity customers, which is a big gap in the system right now. This is just a breakdown of the contracts we'll be assuming. I'm going to skip over that because I want to save as much time as we can. The peer navigation workforce is meant to be a supplement to existing services that are available to help support people as they navigate their way through a system that is confusing at best, very frustrating at not worst, but much worse, very frustrating. The idea is that we would be working with people who have lived experience, who have navigated the system, hiring them to help navigate other people through the system. And that assistance would be regardless of where somebody is living, what services they are accessing at any one time. They would always have that touch point with that peer navigator. So where they might transition from one case manager to another case manager, depending on the program they're participating in, they will always have the same peer navigator. That's the idea. So it's developing a sense of consistency and common language and a common experience that we hope will develop more successful outcomes. So also to support those peer navigators, we have a dedicated staff for logistics and team leads and other program directors and client supports to, again, provide that ongoing touch point. The high acuity response, this is to establish 150 new beds to ensure that high acuity clients exit to either permanent supportive housing or other housing services. It's a pretty high price tag, as you can see. That is because of dedicated medical and behavioral staff and smaller, just overall smaller client to staff ratios that are anticipated because of the needs of this particular population. So those two initiatives add up to about $27 million that we've requested over and above what was being proposed for the authority in 2022. Our operations budget is based on a staffing plan that has been presented in July of 2021. The authority has a living wage policy, so all of our positions are paid such that we want to ensure that our staff can afford housing and to live in the King County metro area. The overall staffing amounts to about 5.68% of our total budget, which is still a pretty lean margin. And currently we have a $600,000 gap in that budget that we've requested from the city of Seattle. This is our organizational chart. Spread of staff across the agency. And this is just a detail that outlines our overall admin budget between staff and overhead and what our estimated available funds are from our different funders, and they're outlining that $600,000 gap I just talked about for our operations costs. That is the presentation.
Can I quickly go to question?
Yes.
Yes.
Because I see case in point here. where once again, we taking a bunch of the money that's allocated for the homeless, and we put it in the pockets of people so they can have a place to stay, so they can stay comfortable. Okay? So, I mean, what is that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and they use all these names like peer, you know, I was a peer navigator for King County. I was a peer navigator for King County. I'm just saying, this is more of the same idiocy, in my opinion, that I see. It's like, we're going to make sure we all right. We're going to make sure we eat. We're going to make sure we got a place to stay first. Then we're going to go out and pretend that we care, and we're going to help some, maybe 5, 6 people. We can get them housed temporarily in a transition house. So I call BS. That's it.
That's going to be a great discussion, because at some point we will have to advise how to ensure that that does not take place. Thanks, Meg. Does anyone else have questions?
I do, Marvin. Yeah, thank you, Meg, for posting that. Where can we get copies of this, or where is this posted so we can see this at our leisure?
Naomi can send it out to the group. Actually.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Marvin, can I?
I had my hand raised.
Okay.
Please. I'm sorry, I couldn't see it.
The new mayor have to follow what is there, or can he come in and change this? Like, if he was just the new mayor, can the new mayor come in and change what you're proposing?
Well,
for next year, no. The scary part, and the reason why I wanted the overview, is that the authority, the RHA, is going to have to reapply for funding from these different sources if we plan to continue to carry the programs as they are and have been funded for the last, say, 10 years or so. There's a lot of room in here for us to add what is probably not there, but also get to see, well, be at the table where funding decisions are actually going to be made if money becomes more available, or God forbid, less available. It's not who loses, but how can we all win? And it's only a conversation we can have when we have the information we need or be able to see it. What was shown to us again today was not our work. What is being shown to you is what is being inherited by the RHA, just as we inherited a NOFO application. This is the starting point.
No, I was just asking because I didn't know politics. So I didn't know if he could come in and say, I don't want to give you any money. So I didn't know how that all works.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. So the way the city's budget process works, the mayor makes a recommendation, and then the city council works on it and approves it. So what gets applied for next year is what the city council approved, and that will be what the mayor has to work with. So the money's going to come to the authority through the Human Services Division. We are going to apply it in these ways. Obviously, we have framed out our budget, and that's, as Meg said, we have a bunch of contracts that we're inheriting. That is true. We are moving forward with what we have, and in the meantime, we are also going to work with you to say, okay, what should this look like? This is what it looks like. What do we want it to look like? How are we going to re-procure this system for 23 when these contracts are done, right? So we have a responsibility to put forward an equity-based procurement process and an equity-based decision-making framework for how should we redesign this system. Then we put that out to procure. All those contractors come forward and say, okay, we can do that, or not. And then we put that out in 23. So 22 has 2 different tracks in it. One is we're caretakers for the current contracts, managing them, and we have public administrative responsibilities for all of that. But the other track, though, we build a procurement process that increases the equity across, who gets to play, who gets to show up at the table. And then we put that out to bid and actually procure the system that we've co-designed. And that, I think, that's the sort of exciting, big, a little terrifying work for next year. But we do have, we have a responsibility for doing that under the, under what we all signed up for.
Are there other questions at this time?
Can I ask Meg? Can you put can you just put slide 6 back up real quick? I wanted to just highlight real quick. So one of the kind of big concepts we got to think through is how do we use which kinds of money? And, Karen raised, very clear point. Let's focus on permanent supportive housing for these continuum of care dollars and move away from transitional housing. Well, that is in alignment with, I think that's
sharing the wrong screen. Just give me.
That's okay. That is in alignment with the way the continuum of care has asked us to look at shifting money over time, right? We have shifted and all continuum. But if you look at this, these are our local monies. So this is City of Seattle money and King County money. Some of it is one-time emergency money that came through COVID. Those are those two pots that that Meg outlined called ARPA and Clifford. That's the American Rescue Plan, and Clifford I can never remember. I think it's continued. I can't remember, but anyway, those are emergency relief monies for COVID relief. But if you look at the way these monies flow out, local dollars are going to emergency shelter, teeny home villages, which are classified as shelter, transitional housing, which hygiene, outreach, prevention. So some of it is in rapid. The PSH that's listed here is mostly on top of PSH funded through like continuum of care and other resources. So it supplements the COC grants. And then, of course, the other piece is based on, sorry, can you go back one, and then, technical assistance. So I just wanted to say, so the local monies are framed out toward more of the sort of temporary and the shelter kinds of operations, and the continuum monies is mostly lined up as permanent supportive housing, right? And so, these are the things that we need to think through and talk through. One of the risks, if, for example, we put a lot of local money into rental assistance, if there is a budget shortfall in a bad year, if cities face a crunch, sometimes those monies get cut and you can't cut people's rent, right? That's where Section 8 is really strong because the federal government keeps printing money. So these are all things that go into the mix as we think things through, okay? Christina, I see your hand.
Can you get a list of what these projects are? As I'm especially interested in the hygiene project myself, but I'd love to see what these projects that you're taking on are like specifically.
Yeah, we can do that. We'll share out the list of what these are. That's So
and actually for both the city and the county, unfortunately, we are still they haven't perfectly finalized the contract plans for both of them. So I think we may need to wait a couple of weeks until we have final information. I wouldn't want to send a bunch of questions out.
Yep, thanks.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off here. I don't think what folks are asking for is the finalized list. I've already seen the mayor's budget, the city council's budget. I know how to find that information because I went looking for what line items were being funded and what was moving and what was not. So I'd have a basic idea of what we would be building conversations around. There are a lot of folks on our committee that don't have direct access or good access to the technology that makes just simply looking at the proposed budgetary amounts or line items or programs that are to be shifted over. They can't see it. So getting a list of that would be helpful for folks to generate conversations so that when the new year starts, folks hit the ground running.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. It's not that in this particular instance, it's about what's been proposed and what is going to be, it's subject to approval. It's
Absolutely.
actually subject, it's not, that's not what I mean by final. It's actually subject to actual confirmation. The numbers that the city has not been able to confirm what we're actually, and it doesn't, and the county, it doesn't actually have anything to do with an approval process. It's about them confirming what it is according to their records. And that's still getting figured out right now. So it's not actually, none of the stuff that's coming over, at least that we're aware of as legacy programs, like the ones that are currently being, they're not really subject to that sort of decision-making process right now. They're really subject to them confirming what the actual projects are and which projects are getting which money and how much.
So that is scary upon hearing, but I will offer, once again, I've seen the ones that have, in the past been funded through HSD that are all in concurrent to be moving over to the authority. Once again, I'm happy to try to share what information I have with my committee, but if the staff is not going to work with us, we don't want to be last ones to know. So the proposed listing is, again, a great place to start.
But we can share what we have, but just with the understanding that it's not, it's not the final, and we're working with them on that. Yep.
Understood. Can be explained. I've got a little tick mark by that. So are there other questions? Thank you very much, Meg.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that overview. That it's a lot of pieces that are moving very fast, and now coming close to just a little over 8 weeks out before figuring out how to work with all of this gets done.
Yeah, and we appreciate your time and all of your input. Look forward to seeing you again.
All right. So moving to the last piece of today, we've touched on it a couple of times, is how will we as a committee seek to move forward doing some work, and a little of anticipation of hopefully giving folks an idea of time. What would that actually look like? I wanted to take this last couple minutes to maybe go over a rough draft of meetings and a meeting schedule, and how we might want to look at taking up subcommittees before we adjourn and head off till next month. I once again can't see hands from my side, so if folks have something to interject, please do so.
Lisa said that it's a hard stop for her at 4.
And it is now 4:01. If this is a hard stop for everyone, I am more than happy to ask Naomi or Catherine to put out via email what a schedule might look like, including some quick ideas about how we could work in other groups to have the discussions necessary that allow for us to absorb passion and combine with knowledge, and then be able to advise from a very powerful, empowered standpoint.
Yes,
I
agree, Marvin. Our charter, our skeletal charter that we are revising as we go along suggests that we form committees. So I think that's a healthy outlook, that we go ahead and dialogue about that next time to see what kind of committees we want to have. So yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, so we'll commit to sending out emails to solicit proposals for that, and we will, we'll project the year's calendar out based on our formal meeting time, and then start thinking through when committees might be able to meet. Okay.
Once again, I can't see if everybody is saying yes, no, or.
For all hands raised.
I'm on the wrong side of this little picture frame here.
Thanks for a good meeting, Marvin. Thanks for a good meeting, everybody.
I do my best. Okay,
I'll
we
think
have
of you
no,
Black Friday when I'm eating my leftover turkey.
all right. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Thanks
All
for
right.
showing up and showing out.
Thanks. Shanae,
Shanae.
if you have some time later this afternoon, I'd like to send me an email.